I'll just go on to my presentation. Right, just check everyone can see that.
No, do I need to? You should be able to share it.
I should be able to. I thought I had. Let me have another go. Share screen. Okay. Right. Is that any better?
I can't see anything. Can anybody else? You need to unmute yourself if you.
I can't see it.
No.
Can't see anything.
I'm just checking the permissions. It said participants should be able to share one at a time. So
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
here we go. Right. Let me. Sorry, I'm a bit of a novice with this. How many
No, no
participants
problem.
can share at one time?
It's easy when you know. But,
There we go.
Right.
I'm going to try again and see if that's done it.
Right. Okay. So can everyone now see that?
Got there in the end.
Right. Fantastic.
Sorry about that.
Right. So as you can see, I'm Cam Roberts and I'm working with Grantscape. And today I'm speaking to you about the Mick George Community Fund. I just have to just move you guys out of the way so I can move my screen on, which it now won't let me move. Oh my goodness, technology, hey. Let's just, oh, there we go. I'm sorry. So Grantscape, we're a national grant making charity and we run community funds on behalf of businesses. I do a lot with landfill, but we also do wind farm, offshore energy, so lots of different funds. But today I'm going to be talking to you about Mick George and a little bit about Augean. So Mick George started trading nearly 40 years ago and now employs over 1,000 employees. And as such, their landfill sites generate quite a vast amount of community benefit fund. The community benefit fund is basically a government incentive to allow operators of landfill sites to do good in their area. I think most of you will probably know a little bit about it, but instead of paying tax to the government, they can put this money into a benefit fund so that anybody who is then in any way, should we say disadvantaged? That's maybe not the whole band, but by the landfill can actually apply for funds to do good for community projects within their area. So we manage the Mick George Community Fund, and we also manage the Mick George Sports Fund, and that is quite separate, and I'll talk to you about that later. So today, the main body is talking about the Community Fund. There are 2 application rounds per year, and the next one is closing on the 31st of August with decisions in October. To be eligible to apply, you must fit within the criteria map, which you can see there. And to have a look at this yourself when you're out of the presentation, you go on to Grantscape's website. It's quite an easy interactive checker where you put your postcode in and it tells you whether you're inside of that map with a nice red dot or outside of it. So who can apply? Voluntary groups and community groups and charities, parish councils, town councils. You can't apply if you're a private entity or if you're, say, a sports club, but you have a very narrow margin for membership. But again, everything that tells you if you're eligible to apply is actually on our website. You must have a published constitution or set of rules, governing document, I'm sorry, my words together today, a bank or building society account in the name of your organisation, and you must have secured all other funds for your project and consent. So let's just say you needed planning consent, you must actually have that approved with an approval number at the time of applying for a Mick George Community Fund grant. You must also know that if, say, your project is costing you, as the example here, 45,000 and you're applying for 20,000, where the residual 25,000 is coming from. And you should really have those in place and have them committed. the Mick George Fund is very heavily oversubscribed. So if, say, a group come to us and they don't have planning permission in place, it's a strike against being sort of at the top of that pack. And if you don't have any co-funding in place, it wouldn't matter, say, if we gave you the 20,000 or if Mick George actually awarded 20,000, without the other 25, you wouldn't be able to proceed. So Mick George are very hot on knowing that you do have all of your permissions in place and all of your co-funding ready and committed. So you can apply for between £10,000 and £50,000, although generally we work with grants around about 35,000 or under. No much funding is required, but as I say, you must have any co-funding. And you can only apply if your whole project is more than 10,000 and less than 100,000. The more than 10,000 is due to the amount of administration costs that it actually incurs to administer these grants. If they do smaller grants, it would eat into the fund such that they wouldn't be able to give out as much money because they'd be paying basically as much in administration of the project as they would be in actual getting the funds to the groups. And less than 100,000 is so that money doesn't get lost in very large projects, waiting weeks, months, years, even for things to even start to get off the ground. So each grant for a Mick George Community Fund grant requires a CTP. So CTP is a third-party donation. It sits completely outside of the grant. It's almost like a key that allows the grant to be unlocked. And in simple terms, it's £11 of CTP donation is required for every £100 of funding. And the application form that you complete will ask you to identify who is actually going to be paying that at the time of applying. So you do need to have taken that into consideration. And if you need more information on CTP, there is something again on our website, a whole page about CTP that explains it in quite deep detail. So what can you apply for? So we have all sorts of things that are applied for. Basically, the one rule of thumb is they have to be capital improvement projects. So we can't pay for any revenue, but we do all sorts. As I say, there is some examples there of places and groups that we have actually supported. So points of note. So as I said before, projects with a specific controlled user group, i.e. schools, may be able to apply. But as the main group in a school is a closed community, you can only apply for money that supports that sort of project for the time that the community is able to use it. So if you're looking for a MOOGA at a school, you could apply, but we'd have to put proportionality around the time available for the community, and that may only allow you, say, 2 days out of 7, say Saturday and Sunday, that the community can use it because the school are using it during the week. But if you do have such a project, contact us and we can talk you through that. Projects do have to be open at a minimum for the guideline there on the screen. But we work with you on that. And if you do have a project which does have a controlled user group, we would need a public access statement that clearly shows when it's available to the community and when it is kept for that controlled group. Membership details, we need details of fees and restrictions and how to become a member of your group. The project applied for, if you're awarded, must also mirror the project that you are awarded for. So what we say to groups is that when you do your application, don't put on your application that you're, say, wanting to do a village hall and you want to put in a kitchen and do the flooring and maybe some roofing work. But then when you come to spend your grant, you're actually looking at putting in toilets. You must be very clear from the start of the process with Mick George what it is you're applying for, so that then when you're awarded, your contract mirrors what you're applying for. And then when you claim the funds, your invoices mirror what's in the contract, which then again mirror what was applied for. So it's a very important process with Mick George that everything flows through very clearly. Now with Mick George, because they know they're oversubscribed, they work on what's called an expression of interest, which is basically a light application form. So you complete your light application form with Mick George. This is then taken to an advisory group who will look at all of the applications that are put forward. Obviously, anything that isn't eligible would be weeded out before they went to Mick George. But as long as you're eligible, i.e. you have all your co-funding, all of your permissions, you're within the criteria boundary, you're a community group, etc., that goes through to Mick George. They then decide which of those they are able to and want to look at in more detail. And you're then asked to fill in a full application form. And you have a 2-week period to do that and then submit it back to us. At the end of that 2-week period, you're then told whether you have a grant or not. And then we start the formal contracting process. However, if you submit an expression of interest, and after going through to the advisory group, it's decided that it won't be a project that's taken forward, there's no ability to resubmit that application. So let's just say you chanced your arm a bit and you thought, well, I don't have all of my co-funding, but I'm going to have a go at applying just to see what happens. You wouldn't be able to then resubmit once you do have all your co-funding. So I can't stress enough how much of an importance it is with Mick George to make sure you have all of your funding and all of your permissions in place at the time of applying. So lots of exclusions. I'll let you read that more at your leisure, but be really careful about what you're applying for. Make sure you read the criteria that's on our website. It is really clear. However, if anything isn't and you think, I'm not quite sure on that one, you can always give us a call. So when you're completing your application, show evidence of need and support within your community. You might have done some community questionnaires or letters of support from the local area. Obviously, the judging criteria does look for that community support and involvement and the benefit. Is it a social benefit, an economic benefit? Does it benefit the environment? And then your group's ability to actually deliver the project and its sustainability to go on after the project is actually completed, and then overall value for money. And try to demonstrate how your project meets these judging criteria and answer all of the questions within the application, and never assume that the person reading it knows what you're talking about. Acronyms are really quite difficult for us to be able to assess. Try and be concise about what you're trying to say, short sentences rather than rambling too much. Highlight all the positive outcomes and benefits, and present all of your information logically, and check your figures. Because obviously if you've accidentally put in that your new skate park is going to cost £6,000 and then you find out that it's 26,000, you can't go back and ask for more money. You can, as I say, when you apply, you have to be really clear on what you're applying for, and then if you're awarded, that then mirrors what you applied for. So as I say, the next closing date is in August, with decisions known in October, and then after that we have another round in March of 23. It takes approximately 12 weeks from the closing date to reach a decision, and as I say, that the expression of interest process actually comes into play, where you start off with a light application, and if you're asked to, you then go into a full application. So if you want to find out more, go on to www.grantscape.org.uk. Really interesting and very helpful information on the Mick George Community Fund on our website. As I said before, if you need any more information, please just call us. But it is all very clear, so I don't think there should be any confusion. Then, as I said before, Mick George also run a sports fund, and these are for much smaller grants, between £500 and £1,500. And again, they have 2 rounds per year, so the next one is in September. And if you want to apply for one of the Mick George sports funds, there's a different link at the bottom of the page there, where you actually go through to Mick George. They then look at them before they come to us, and then they come to us for on pass. It's a slightly sort of different sort of back to front type process with the sports fund. I'll also talk to you very briefly about the Augean Community Fund. This fund runs very similarly to the Mick George Fund in that you need a CTP. However, you don't do an expression of interest with Augean, you do a full application straight away. But your project must be within 10 miles of Kingscliff in Northampton or Thornhough in Peterborough. And this is the map. It's a very small area. But if you are able to apply, this is a very good fund because it's not as oversubscribed as the Mick George Fund. And that's the end of my presentation. Do we have any questions?
People will need to unmute themselves if they'd like to ask a question, because everyone would be muted when they joined. Donna, do you have a question for Karen?
Hi, Karen. So as far as funds go, do you have to have a very specific outline project? So our project is an ongoing project. It's something we've always done, but we obviously need extra resources for advertisement, for recruitment of more volunteers. Is that something that Mick George would support?
No, unfortunately not. It's only capital projects. There's no revenue elements associated with it at all.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Oliver.
Hi. Would you support an application for a vehicle for transport?
No, unfortunately, because
Okay.
the project has to be at a site which is within a certain miles from a landfill site. And
Okay.
with something like a vehicle, it can move around and it could actually go outside of the criteria. So unfortunately, vehicles are one of the no-nos of the criteria.
Okay. Thank you.
Emma?
Yeah,
Like
is
that?
there the Augean funding? Is there a limit on the amount of money that you can apply for?
It's on the website. I can't remember it offhand. I think it's 50,000.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Sophie, would you like to ask your?
Right, yes, for the Augean one, can parish and town councils apply for that as well?
Oh, yes, they can. Yes. And I would recommend that if you're within the funding area of Augean, that you do try applying for that fund. It's not undersubscribed, but it's nowhere near as oversubscribed as the Mick George Fund. So please do have a look at it. It's a very good fund.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to ask a question? Looks like we're going to be short and sweet today. Would we be able to have your presentation that we can send it to people if
Yes,
they
if
are?
anyone would like it, most definitely. And as I say, all of the same details are on our website at www.grantscape, and you are welcome. There's all the numbers are on there as well. That if you've got any more questions, you're welcome to either give me or any member of the team a ring to see if
Okay.
we can help you and support.
Looks like we've got another question. Jenny, would you like to? Oops. Okay, I can't see Jenny now. Okay, no, we don't have any more questions. Okay, if nobody else has any other questions, then we'll wrap up for now. But we'll forward on the slides to people, and as I mentioned earlier, this will be recorded, so it will go up onto the Northants Council website, so you can watch again or pass on to anyone else who wasn't able to get here today. And if I could just remind you to complete the online questionnaire, and if you'd like to be entered into the prize draw, you just need to add your email address. But if there's no more questions, thank you everybody, and hopefully we'll see you for some other sessions later on, well, over these next 3 days. And thank you, Karen, for coming in and
Thank you,
talking to
everyone.
us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.